And sorry if you just saw a lot of spit come towards the camera. P's are hard to say.
Hey YouTube, it's the Pied Piper.
Are you listening?
Shut up and sit down.
It's the Pied Piper.
It's my channel and I'm the only one.
Hey YouTube, it's the Pied Piper. This
YouTube thing? This YouTube version? Hey YouTube, it's Piper. It's the Pied Piper, it's Piper, whatever. I know I just filmed a video and you're probably like, oh my gosh, we're seeing you again so soon after such a hiatus, but I promised I would be back and I'm trying to be consistent. So if you have any content that you want me to absolutely film, please let me know. And before we get started, go down to that little red area where it says subscribe and hit that button. I'm not putting my subscriber count back up until it's where I want it to be. I really want it to be a certain place. And if you haven't already gone and done it, go to Instagram and hit @that_chick_piper_TV and go and follow me because I'm trying to reach a goal and I can't reach that goal if nobody goes on there and follows me. So I know I don't normally wear this much eyeshadow and you're probably like, girl, you look fierce. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning right now. So the fact that I still have this makeup on is impressive, especially after I only got like 1.5 hours of sleep last night. I'm literally in a dreamland right now because I'm so tired. But I wanted to get this video out. I know I said I'm going to film the reactions and I have all the gummy bears so that I have to film reactions because who eats 3 pounds of gummy bears without a reason to do it? Me. Of course, my phone will be interrupting periodically because that seems to be just how life works for me. So I have all these gummy bears. So I gotta do reactions. And like I said, I'm probably gonna do that Patreon thing just so that I can put up, my bad. I'm probably going to do that Patreon thing because I want to put up full reviews to things. And how are you going to witness me eat 3 pounds of gummy bears unless you're a Patreon and you can see the whole, or what is it? I guess if you're a patron, and then you can see the whole shebang. You can see everything. But I can do certain reviews without getting copyright struck, hopefully. So I'm going to start doing my literature review. But I'm not eating gummy bears for that. So I'm just put this back there for your viewing pleasure. And I changed the bag behind me just to make people say stuff since I get so many weird messages about the background crap. But since I'm doing a literature review, I put up a couple different things in my background because I have this nifty little thing that I got from someone that I deeply care for. And it says, I'm dead inside. And the reason why it says that is if you watched my video about my book series, then you'll know what I'm dead inside means. And it's not because I'm having some like existential gothic sort of crisis. No, this is in relation to my book. And I'm wearing these really cool plaid leggings. And sorry for you seeing those. They're super cool and they match my eye makeup. It's a whole feeling. So that's why the eye makeup is extreme right now because it's matching everything. I'm very matchy today. Anyway, I used that BH Cosmetics Back to Brazil or Take Me Back to Brazil or whatever. I used that and the Juvia Place palette as well. So for my first literature review, I think I told you guys before that I was going to do the book that I titled this video, obviously, The N-Word. And I know what you're thinking, the N-Word? What's the N-Word? You know what the N-word is. Don't act like you don't. But one of my favorite authors is, she's not the first author. She's not the first author who writes multicultural type of novels and like romance and stuff that I read. She's actually one of the 8th or 9th, maybe even the 10th authors that I tried who wrote, interracial and, diverse characters and stuff like that. And I know a lot of people are like, why would you go out of your way to find books that have, diverse or interracial couplings? And the reason I do that is because it's for the same reason that I write those types of couplings. couples, whether it be in my screenplays or my novels. I write diverse couples, and not always is it going to be like a black woman or a black skinned woman with a white dude or anything like that. It'll be anybody, but usually it's just every type of relationship is going to be diverse and involve diversity, because as little kids and as kids coming up, when you are not quote unquote the norm, the majority, you don't have stories that cater to you. And as we've seen with things like the live action Disney movies and them changing Ariel to be black instead of a white mermaid with red hair, and we remember that controversy. And I actually had a unique view on it. If you want me to do another video addressing what I think about that Ariel thing, let me know. When I was little and when the Little Mermaid was first coming out, Ariel was red hair and, white skin, and, and my favorite movie, Cinderella, again, is all about, a white girl with blonde hair. And even Beauty and the Beast, Belle is, a brunette, which I could relate to. So she was a little bit on my level, but she also, white skin, pale skin. And yeah, she was with a beast, but I don't relate to a beast. And I think like Jasmine was as close as I got to a brown girl in Aladdin, which is why I loved Aladdin. And if you know anything about me, my favorite movies are Cinderella, Aladdin, and Beauty and the Beast. Those are like my favorite all-time Disney movies outside of The Sound of Music, which again is a whole white family. Obviously, they're going to be white though, because they're like in Germany. Anyway, I digress. That is one of the reasons why I thought that it was super important to write books for girls who don't see themselves and women who don't see themselves out there. I mean, you can only read so many times about peach nipples and peaches and cream skin and blushing and all of that in romance novels before it's like, give me a break. Who wants to read that same story over and over again? And if you read certain authors, a lot of their stuff kind of blends together. A lot of their characters, if they have a book series, they just blend together when they're all the same ethnicity, and you just kind of alternate the same look over and over again. You just kind of keep duplicating it. I mean, I love authors like J.R. Ward and Christine Fahan and Jenna Showalter, Presley Cole, and a lot of those big ones, Sherilyn Kenyon. And I love those authors, but after you read so many books, and all of those authors have series that are like 30 books long or however many books long, and they never have women in those that are brown, a lighter brown or caramel even. I mean, it's usually just, lily white romance. And not that there's anything wrong with lily white romance. I love it. I don't mind it. But after a while, you start wondering, do they really believe that no other people in this world exist except for that? Because for reality, this world is a big melting pot for the most part. I mean, at least in America, and they set a lot of their stories in these very realistic cities. They never encounter somebody who's a different ethnicity, or their skin is not pale and peachy and peaches and cream and alabaster and whatever other names you can come up with for really white. And again, I don't have anything against like people who are white. I love people who are white. I've dated only white men, as you know if you've watched any of my videos. But the problem is those aren't the only people who exist. These, petite blondes and brunettes and redheads. And let me tell you, when I was younger, I was all about Little House on the Prairie, but I did not see any color on that show. I mean, I think Todd Bridges was in an episode of that, but that's pretty much it as far as and what was it, Hattie Mae or somebody like that, who worked in like Nellie's mom's kitchen in Little House on the Prairie. But again, there were just so few people who represented love and a life that I felt, and even more so, I date interracially. Couple that with also not seeing couples and people fall in love that look like my idea of what love is and what I'm familiar with, and it just starts to feel like you're a little lonely in this world. And like I was saying, one of my favorite shows even when I was younger was Anne of Green Gables. And as you can tell, I've always had a thing for chicks with red hair, which is why my hair is red, obviously. I always liked that, but I never saw people who represented what was real for me. And so I began thinking like, maybe love isn't possible if you look like me, and maybe I'm so different that nobody's gonna feel that way about me. And I realized, there is a lacking in the world. And yeah, as a person, you can relate to other people and they don't have to have your skin color, but it does help a little bit when you're younger and you're forming your opinions. That's why when I had read those American Girl books and they got the one book, Black black girl and I was super excited. Not because like I didn't love Samantha just as much, but it was nice to see some diversity and see them all be friends and occupy the same world and the same space. And so that's what the books I write are for, is to occupy the same world and the same space. There are white people, there are black people, there are Mexicans, mixed race, Asians, Indians, there are Native Americans. I mean, my books have everything. My screenplays have everything. A lot of the time they cater to women who have my ethnicity with men who don't, or like the main characters will be women who are brown and other colors, Asian and whatever else, and they will have relationships with other people that are different to show some diversity. And it doesn't mean that there's not going to be any Caucasian people in my books. There are, and they are main characters too. And in my screenplays there are Caucasian people who are main characters, but I want to show that diversity. And I'm even thinking about starting a publishing company that caters to specifically authors who write diverse books, because a lot of those authors who write this diversity are super good, but they only are self-publishing, which is totally cool. Get your money the way you have to get your money, boo-boo. I ain't mad at you. But it sucks because, they don't get the editing, they don't get the covers that the big mainstream, companies give, and publishing companies have the money to do all that sort of, press and everything else. Whereas a self-publisher doesn't have that, right? And they sometimes have books that are not as good quality as the main publishing company. So I hope to be able to start something like that. That's my goal. And I don't know how easy it's going to be to obtain, but I'm doing what I can for, my people who write this, because there are authors who write the books that I like to read. Aaliyah Burke, Lena Matthews, and Latrivia Welch, or Latrivia Nelson, who she used to be, but now she's Latrivia Welch. 50 Shades of Jungle Fever, which I loved, which was interracial, and that was L.V. Lewis, Billy London. There are a ton of authors who write really good. Yvonne, all these people that you've probably never heard of because they write these interracial stories and nobody's really checking for them. They're not getting that much press. I'm going to be given that much press, so I'm going to be reviewing their books. There's a ton. It's sad, and I'm looking down because I'm looking at my Kindle, not because I'm just like having some weird sort of stroke. But Sienna Minks, how could I forget her? She writes a very good series. Erosa Knowles, how could I ever forget her? She writes my 3X, and most of the books I have read are because of her, and she's amazing author. I love her. And then there's me, of course, but the person who wrote The N-Word is Tiana Laveen. And The N-Word actually has 2 books. It's a 2-book series. It's not really a series, it's just 2 books. But you can read them, I think, pretty standalone, but I wouldn't read The N-Word and then not read Word of Honor, or read Word of Honor without The N-Word, because you really won't understand what all happened. I mean, it does delve into who the main characters are, but I would not read them backwards. I'd read those together. So you read The N-Word first and then Word of Honor. And so the book starts out pretty racist. Wow. A book called The N-Word starts out racist? Shock. Okay, it does, obviously. It's called The N-Word. So it starts off pretty racist, and you have Aaron Pike, who is in prison, and he's very passionate and very articulate, and he's talking about this idea that, he is a white nationalist. And first, when he's talking about his idea of the world and what he wants for his future children, and even the child that he has with someone he really didn't plan to be with, and he, ended up having a child with her and discovering that, obviously they weren't going to be made for each other. So now his daughter's growing up in a broken home. He came from a really bad childhood. He had not a lot of good influences in his world. And so when his neighbor, who's a really good woman, was influential in his world, and his parents were abusive and everything else, and I'm not going to tell you like everything, I'm just going to recap it for you. I advise reading The N-Word. Even if you're a little bit triggered, read it, because it opens up your mind for discussion and for thought. And I'm sure a lot of you know, because I've told the story, I'm sure, on Love and Swirl, which used to be It's Swirl World, about how I dated a white supremacist before on accident. So, it's not always black and white. There's some gray in there. But it's really interesting that Aaron Pike is a white supremacist, and he's like the top dog. He's the head nacho. I call it that. I know it's honcho, but I say head nacho. So he's the head nacho of white supremacist group. He calls them white nationalists or whatever, but it's not better. None of it's better. It's basically is racist. So he's just not like a grand dragon or anything. So he's talking about his dedication. He's even got swastikas tattooed on him, but he doesn't have tattoos anywhere that people can see because he is intelligent enough to know that you have to be able to move in secret. You can't move in secret if your face is tatted with swastikas and things like that. And he doesn't normally just beat up people of different races. He's more about having pride in who he is. And so you learn realistically that Eren is not actually racist when you come to think of it. It's just a misguided attempt at just really finding pride and really having nobody to attach to. And when his parents were abusive and couldn't take care of him any longer, he had a woman that had been a neighbor of his that came into his life, and she had a boyfriend who was a white supremacist, and so those are the people that he could count on. They kind of accepted him in. It was like a family, and more than anything, family is very important to Mr. Eren Pike. So he starts out in prison. He's in prison the first part of the N-word. I don't know if you want me to say the whole thing. I can do a more in-depth analysis of the whole book, and I'm not going to go into Word of Honor in this video. I'm going to wait and go into it in the next video. But in this one, you discover that you have Eren Pike. He's in prison, and in this story is mostly from his perspective, which is awesome. And you see a lot of things that he has just picked up from childhood as like ideologies that he's taken on, but he really doesn't have. As intelligent as he is, he doesn't really have a reason to feel this way, this animosity towards these other people. It's just kind of something, an ideal that he clung to because he had so little to really depend on in his world as a child and growing up. And so he's ended up going through, life just kind of lost a little bit. And he does treasure family. He actually has a very strong sense of family and what he wants for his children. It just so happens to be he also wants them to be super white. So he's in prison for actually assaulting and I believe killing a black man, and it's like his last strike. And sorry again, I'm looking down. I'm just trying to get to the book. Don't quote me on what everything is. Like I said, some of it I'm right on, some of it I'm not. I'm just paraphrasing. So like he's in prison though for doing something very wrong to a black man, and I believe he killed him, but he does have a security company also. Like Eren is smart. He has his own company. He's making moves. Like he's not some white supremacist who's unintelligent. And so it really opens your eyes to see that even people with those types of ideals are not uneducated. He is very educated. He's very intelligent. He's a business savvy individual, and he carries a weapon on him all the time. But he also isn't the type of man that's going to move like that by killing and hurting somebody in broad daylight in a convenience store where everybody can see, where there's so many witnesses. He's not going to do something like that. So why would he have ever done this to get in prison? Because it's clear that this happened, but why did Eren take that step? So he's in there, and the warden is tired of him because there's been some race wars and things and riots in the prison, and basically he's trying to get Eren Pike out of his prison. So he sets up this ability for Eren to start seeing this counselor, and his hopes are that Eren is somehow moved because there are a lot of race war things going on, all in the name of Eren, but Eren's not calling the shots and having these people do these things. So that's another backstory for what he's looking at in this story. So he's trying to figure out who is calling these orders and making these moves and telling people to do these things in his name when he's not the one calling the shots. And he's a big dog in prison. If you're like the head nacho of any of the races, you got a pretty made. And so then we meet Mia, and Mia is a black woman, and she is a bigger girl. Eren is a big dude too. Like, don't get me wrong, he's huge and he's buff, and obviously he is the hero of the story, so he's gonna be dope looking, obviously. So he's cute, according to the description. I never saw him, but and you saw him. You saw the title, or you saw at least a picture of the cover of the book. But and her name is Tiana Laveen, and like I said, she's an amazing author. She is so good at these complicated kind of stories. She wrote this story about a priest called Forgive Me, Father, For I Have Loved, and it was bomb. It was really good. I loved that story, and I was really impressed with her ability. I advise looking her up on Amazon and just taking a read. If you want to start out with the N-word, go ahead, but like I said, the N-word and then Word of Honor. So back to Mia. So Mia's this black girl. She's close with her cousin. She's kind of small town. Her parents are very religious. They're black too, obviously. She's a teacher for kids with special needs. And I believe she actually, although it's not said, I guess, blatantly, but I believe the children she works with are autistic. And for the most part, she's a really, just kind of homebody girl, keeps to herself, and she's a decent woman. But she ends up somehow, and I'm not going to go into everything. Like I said, it's a good book. Read it if you want to. I'm paraphrasing. But Mia ends up working in a prison because she's just decided to work in this prison to help people get their GEDs because she's a teacher and that's close to her heart. And so she's working in this prison. At the time when she's working in this prison, one of the psychologists who's seeing different prisoners in there, doing counseling with different prisoners, he actually says to her, hey, what would really be uplifting is if you could get some people to write to some of these prisoners who don't get much mail, and it would really help them move through this and really rehabilitate them, or at least help them, have an outside connection to the world and not really lose themselves while they're in here. So she takes some of these names and tries to get people to write these inmates. And I don't remember if she ever had anybody, but I know that she doesn't believe that she was supposed to sign up for this, but she ends up signing up for this anyway. And so, of course, she starts writing to Erin. And at first, she's not doing anything malicious. She's doing what most smart women would do. She's not giving her real name. She's going by a name Melissa or whatever. She's also not giving her real address. She's not doing anything that's going to identify her, just in case Mr. Aaron Pike gets out and wants to express himself violently. And most women who are intelligent are not going to be giving, inmates all their information. Although I have seen some of these shows where that's exactly what women do. They're like, yes, you're in prison. Where do I sign up? And she starts writing Aaron, and I don't really know how she picks Aaron. Obviously, it's not like under his name it says White's Pernis or anything. So she doesn't know that. She was just doing this thinking that she was bringing something positive into this person's life, and she very much is disavowing him of any sort of ideas about them being in a relationship at the beginning. And so they just kind of talk, and he's very open with her and telling her what he wants in a woman and what he expects from a wife, and it's everything she wanted to hear, and she's just like, oh, how amazing. But then he, drops that bomb of the organization that I'm a part of. And then he finally names the organization in which he's a part of, and she's like, oh, snaps, this sucks. And so, like most teachers do, she, and most parents, if you're a parent worth your salt, you are going to view this eventually, I guess, in a certain way. As an adult, I would never take this risk, but as a kid, obviously I did when I was beginning dating. But she decided, after some heartfelt soul searching, she decided this is a teachable moment. Aaron doesn't know what I look like, so I'm about to help him. And she starts really working with Aaron and unraveling some of this racist mentality that he has. At first, he just doesn't agree with her, and he just kind of thinks of her as a race sympathizer or whatever, and it's just kind of like, yeah, you're pretty cool in every other way except for your weird liking of things that are not all white. And, he's talking to her like a white supremacist, like you would imagine a white supremacist would talk to anyone, just very, strong in their beliefs and it's us against them and yada, yada, yada. So he's feeding her all that, which is obviously going to make her sick to her stomach. So I can't remember if this is before or after this part, but whatever. So he does ask her about what she looks like, but she knows he's in the prison that she works at. So she one day decides to trot out there because he's given her ideas of where he is throughout the day. And so she trots out to see him while he's on the basketball court. For a white supremacist, why are you out there doing that? I don't know what white supremacists think is fun. Anyway, so he's out there playing basketball and she sees him, but obviously he's never going to put two and two together that she is, her and the person writing him, because he thinks that woman is white. So she just feels like it's an innocent way to see what he looks like. She sees him and she's like, okay, I see what you're working with. And he sees her, and even though he's not known for his mixing, he does get a little tingle. And I'm like, he's been locked up for a while, so maybe. He gets a little tingle, and he's like, she's cute. If I was a race trader, she'd be cool. This is not what you want to hear. It's kind of one of those backhanded compliments where you're like, thanks. You're pretty for a dark-skinned girl. It's kind of a compliment like that. It's not like he tells her that. But you can tell that there is an attraction there, though. He would be attracted to her. He's just finding reasons not to be. So Melissa, who's Mia in real life, tasks him with talking to a black inmate. Sitting down and actually talking to one just to see. So, of course, in prison, there's all sorts of reasons why people are, segregated. And it's a whole different culture. Can't really just go up and be talking to just any old body, but he is like the head white guy. So he goes and talks to a guy, and they end up actually having a decent conversation, even though the dude treats him just like you would expect a black dude who's leery of a big, huge, white, Aryan dude coming up and talking to him. But they end up like talking, and it's all good. And they actually have a very tenuous sort of friendship. And then Aaron, who is seeing the psychologist in prison, also is ruthless with the psychologist. He thinks he's gay, and I don't ever think they go over his sexual orientation in the books, but he just assumes like he's gay, and it says a whole bunch of slurs about him, which would not go over well with the community and the sensitivity that's going on right now. But it's such a cool thing though, because you literally get to see Aaron unraveled. You get to see all of his thoughts and ideas on the world challenged, and he is intelligent enough to take a step back and be introspective for a bit and think about what it is that he holds true, and if those things are still true to him. And so he's doing all that work before he ever knows that Mia is a black woman. But once the psychiatrist finally discovers that it's Mia writing Aaron, he decides to be totally unethical. I don't know any other way to say it. He's just going to be unethical. And Mia does eventually come to him and break down and tell him like, yeah, it's me and I don't know what to do about this. And this counselor, this therapist, he really does go above and beyond for Aaron to truly help him. He even allows Aaron to talk on the phone to Mia, and he's talking dirty to her over the phone in the counselor's office while he's in there and getting time for his counseling sessions. It's so weird. I'm like, hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. So the first book, they don't really have any physical time together because it's the first book and he's in prison for a large majority of this time. And so I'm gonna leave it right there. This is already becoming like the world's longest video. I'm gonna leave it right there. I'll tackle more of it, but just so you know, yes, Mia and Aaron do eventually meet for a conjugal visit that the therapist absolutely sets up in a way that will definitely put his job in jeopardy should anybody find out what actually goes down. But he does it because he really does have a lot of faith in Aaron that he's going to be a different man and that he isn't the man that he's been and he isn't who he's been portrayed to be. There's a deeper man in there that just is aching to get out. Anyway, it's a really good book. It's Tiana Laveen, and I don't know if I said it right, but I will flash all of the book covers so that you can see it, and go look on Amazon for it yourself. Take a little read of it, and while you're over there and you're reading, you can read Dead Inside by yours truly, and it's obviously not a contemporary romance or anything like that. I don't write contemporary, although the book that's going to be published soon is contemporary, but it's not going to be published under my same pen name. However, this book is more dark urban fantasy, dark paranormal romance. So if you like that kind of stuff, then you will love Dead Inside, and I will flash that so that you can go and take a look at that on Amazon. And if you have any comments, please feel free to leave those. And if you've read any books that you think are really cool and they're multicultural and they have, that feel to it, leave it below so I can read it. I definitely read a ton. I'm a super big nerd. And please, before doing anything, like this video and share it with people. I shall see you when I see you. Like, subscribe, comment, share.
Share any way you can.
Smoke signal, Morse code,
carrier pigeon, telegraph,
2 cans of string.
beeper, pager, whistle, pager, snail mail. Tell somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that, hey, Hyper has a new video.
Have you ever felt? Are you listening?